Okay, I'm Brian Coward, I'm 75 years old. I was born in Luton in Bedfordshire, right in the middle of the country, which will become relevant as we carry on. I was in the Royal Navy, I was in the communications branch, and I was what they called a communications yeoman, which is a petty officer, which is equivalent to a sergeant in the other forces. The part I dealt with was mainly the visual signals, which was flags, lights. Had to use Morse code, and we did some of the codes and ciphers as well.
How long did you serve for?
A total of 12 years, and that was really 3 years boys' time, and then 9 years full man's time.
What made you want to join the armed service?
This is a nice little story, and it's a true one. I previously said I lived in Luton, Bedfordshire, and when I was 4 years old in 1943, the town had a fete, and we took our bulldog Sally to the fete and entered her in one of the shows, and she actually won the category. I know not what it was, but I can vividly remember a photograph being taken of her with a sailor's hat on, and I was intrigued because living in Luton, Bedfordshire, you're virtually as far from the sea as you can get, and it intrigued me, and from then onwards I wanted to join the Royal Navy, and I did succeed. I did.
Were you quite young when you joined them?
I was 15 years old, 15 years 2 months when I joined.
What was it like to have to leave home at that age?
I was fortunate because when the war finished, my father had been a policeman all during the war, and he was invalided out with arthritis, and he then took on public houses, and we moved to London just after the war, 47. And I hate to say it, but I was allowed to roam London at the age of 8, 9 plus. So I became reasonably independent. So when I got to 15, leaving home didn't hurt me as much as it did some. Some of them were hit hard by it, thank you. And it was quite a shock to some of the people. But no, for me personally, I was quite happy about it. I wanted to concentrate on my career, so it didn't bother me.
Do you think also because it's what you wanted to do from when you were so young?
Oh yeah, I think that contributed to it.
Yeah.
And the fact the life I've lived made me independent, as it were.
Yeah.
So I wasn't worried by being away from home and mummy and daddy.
And what was your training like? What did it include?
The training, the place in there. Well, on the peninsula in Suffolk, there's two rivers meet, the Orwell and the Stour. They meet at this peninsula, opposite Harwich and opposite Felixstowe across the other side. There's a renowned place called Shotley, S-H-O-T-L-E-Y, in Suffolk. And there they used to train boys to join the Royal Navy. And at any one time there was 2,000 boys there rotating around their different courses. And I joined there in March 1954. And in communications we carried out about 17 months, I think it was, training. I left there in August 55, sorry. So the training was hard, the discipline was hard, but we got used to it. And when we look back on it, I know when I reflected on it, when I went to sea, everything was done for you there, even though you didn't realise it. At the age of 15, 16, you think you're being persecuted, but you're not, you're being taught. Or brainwashed is probably another way of putting it. We were brainwashed into doing the job, because when you go on a ship, you have to become part of a team that works in unison, without any doubt. And that's still the case today. Yeah.
I remember my granddad was part of the Navy. Actually, the other day he said that his first 6 weeks of training, that after that he felt the fittest he's ever felt in his life. Do you agree with
fit.
that?
Oh,
Yeah.
Fit. I mean, they really hammer you at physical fitness and mental agility. The exams we had to do were quite hard. But, I mean, our pass mark on some of the things was 95%. You know, that's quite high. But it was a requirement for the trade we were in. We had to be proficient because we were going to be at sea on conditions that could need you to pay attention to your job and be proficient at it.
So did not everyone go? They didn't pass the exams?
No, some did fail.
And then they can be on...
They did back class them, but I don't know if there's a limitation on how many times you do back class. But the difference in classes is about 3 months. So you do back class 3 months, you have to wait another 3 months. So it's quite a long while. Yeah.
What equipment did you use, and what was it like to operate it?
In my job?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mentioned earlier about flags and lights. The lights, there's quite a variety of lights, from very small hand lights where you've got really dim colours that you use at night, at sea, short range, Really, no bright light coming out, coloured lights, because you didn't want submarines to see it, of course. And then we went up to small hand lamps called an Aldis lamp. Then there was a 10-inch static lamp, which is a big shutter thing. And there's an enormous searchlight with 20-inch power, which gives out about, I think it was 10 million candle power. Huge thing. You could use it as a searchlight, but you could also signal with it, and that signaled a long way.
You said you're in charge of the communications, was it? Yeah.
I wasn't in charge at that point.
But
later on, I was in charge in a different environment.
If you could have done another role, what would you have done, and why would you do that?
You know, I saw that question. I thought I never wanted to be anything else but. I think I'll skip that one because I never wanted to be anything but a communicator.
Yeah. Can you tell me about your daily life in the services? Tell a bit about it.
In the services, well, that really did depend on whether you were at sea or whether you were in harbour, whether you were on a ship, whether you were in a shore establishment. But on a ship,
quite different every day then.
Oh, it was. Every day was different, and I did put down my marker points on that. It would depend on A, what the ship was doing, B, what the weather was like, and probably C, how everyone felt. Yeah, but yeah, it would change every day.
Yeah, and you go into like different countries a lot as well. So.
That would change your
Yeah.
attitude to where you were. I mean, you could be in a horrible, miserable place, you wouldn't like it, but then you could be where I was really, in the Caribbean. That was good.
What challenges were there that affected your morale?
Morale. I think the weather was quite an important one. I served mainly on small ships, destroyers and frigates, and they bounce about a lot. There's no doubt about it. And even the destroyers of today, they are larger, but I'm sure they still bounce about. Because when you consider you get waves of 60 feet high, if you've got to go across those, it's quite a long way down and up to get across the troughs they call it. So I think morale can be sort of stimulated one way or the other by the weather, and because it can make you queasy. I was fortunate I was never actually seasick, as I know a lot of people were. I felt quite queasy sometimes, but morale, yeah. And again, morale could be caused by the personnel. I mean, if you got officers who were, let's say, stringent about the way you carried out things, a little too much, that could affect morale. But, you know, you have to accept that because you did as you were told, don't we all?
I guess it's the same what you said about being in different countries, like in the Caribbean opposed to somewhere else.
That would help,
Yeah.
if you're in a nice environment.
So, when you had free time, what did you do in your spare time?
Is this ashore or
It just said
everywhere?
during your training or your mobilisation.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, well, sport was a prime one. I played football, I did swimming, eventually hockey I think. But sport was quite prominent in the Navy. Whenever you stopped anywhere, you'd instantly get or you would challenge a local team to play you. And it was fun. It boosted their morale, it boosted our morale. And I wasn't in the first football team, but we did play a team in Mexico that included the national goalkeeper. But we didn't beat them, but that's not a point. But sport was a prime thing. Back on board non-sport, my main hobby was calligraphy. I loved the art of writing. I used to do a lot of that. And occasions when the ship went either to the Arctic Circle or crossing this line at the equator, they produce and sell you a lovely certificate. Well, I took on the task of writing people's names on it, so that forever there it was. I used to like doing calligraphy. If you ask me to write nowadays, I'm pathetic. I've really lost that art. It's something I should have kept going. I used to write all my Christmas cards and that in hand, glorious writing. I don't do that now. It's silly me, computers rule.
Did you get a lot of spare time in the Navy?
Not really, no. If you were on a watchkeeping rota, you'd probably be on a, let's say, 4 on, 4 off, 4 on, 4 off a lot of the time. Sometimes you drop down to 4 on, 8 off type of cycle. There were variations on it, but that was about the norm. If you were on day duty, it'd be a 12-hour day and at sea. So, not really a lot of time.
No. Was it possible for you to communicate with your family or loved ones much?
I love that question because I compare it with what's available nowadays. In the period 59 through to 61, I was arranging A, to get married, and B, to buy a house, which was unheard of in those days, I must admit, to have a house that young in the Navy. All communications was done by mail. And can you imagine a solicitor urgently wanting a piece of document signed by me, and I'm out in the Mediterranean or wherever. When the mail came on board, I'd open it up, and there's a letter from my wife-to-be. Get this signed quick, and it would go back. But that could have taken a week to get to me, and it'd take a week to get back. So urgency didn't come into it, unfortunately. The service of the post was all we got. But that was the only way to communicate. There were occasionally, you could use what was telegrams. They don't have telegrams now. I don't think so. It used to be where from the ship we would radio into Portishead in Avon, and they would then transfer it into a sticky tape thing which would be posted inland mail. But that was the only way of communicating. No email, no computers.
No. It must be, I think it's easier now.
Unbelievable.
They still have access to the internet when they're on the ships.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think they've got full capability as we have here, which is good. But, yeah.
I guess in a way that it must have been hard, like not to see your wife to be and your family, but it must also be nice to sort of escape a little bit, would you say, from the rest of the world?
No, the reason I came out was because I wanted a married life and I didn't want to be bobbing up and down. So no, I would disagree with that because I love being with my wife.
Oh. What would you say is your favourite memory of being in the Navy? Or you might not have one, have you got a few?
I've got a silly one. I think I was about 16 or 17 years old and I went ashore in Malta, this was, with some friends, and for some unknown reason I had too much alcohol put inside me. And someone suggested we go for a tattoo. I thought, what a good idea. Sailors have tattoos, thought I, in my drunken state. So we were taken to this tattoo parlour. Fortunately, it was shut. When I woke the next morning, I realised what had happened the evening before. I prayed to someone that I'd been relieved of that burden, because goodness knows what I would have got. And I'll conclude the story with something which may not get on camera. But when I was 65, I said to my daughter, I want a tattoo because I never had any. And so she said, what? Anyway, I had one on the left leg. And then when I had that done, I was in balance, so I had one foot on the right leg. And I said, that's it, to finish.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But my philosophy is, or was then, that tattoos when you're younger don't last well with life. They've changed now because the ink systems are much better nowadays. But in those days, and people I know from those days who had tattoos then, they all look blurred and horrible now. So I didn't want any. So my philosophy now is that I can have one, it'll be pristine when I go in my box. You like that? It's cool.
Did you ever see conflict?
Yeah, not of a major sort. I was at Cyprus and Suez when the things occurred there. Cyprus was a terrorist situation with the terrorists on the island, the Greek terrorists, being supplied by mainland sources of equipment, guns and all that. And to prevent it, the Royal Navy used to send ships on patrol around there at night to try and stop it. And so all the work was done that night. And we did catch quite a few of the gun runners, as we called them, although they had all sorts of things on there, not just guns, explosives, all sorts. And we would find a boat on the radar, go to it, search it, and if it was carrying anything naughty, impound it, etc., and take it back to be dealt with by the authorities. And then that carried on. We did that for, in total, 2 or 3 different whacks for about 14, 15 weeks, I think. And the other conflict I was in was Suez, the political saga of the 56. And even though I was on a ship that was based in the home fleet at the time, we were sent out there to assist. And I was in on the attack on Port Said. And they were lobbing shells at us because they bounced off our bows, not in the water near them. So that was fun. Yeah, they're the two things I've been involved with.
When they're shooting the shells, did you find it quite scary?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. Yeah, you never know what to expect.
Yeah.
And it was in that thing that I saw my first, I'll say, dead body in a non-civilian situation. I think we were doing escorts for one of the carriers, and someone reported seeing a body in the sea. And we went to this position and found it, and sure enough it was. It was an Egyptian, a person off of one of the Egyptian E-boats, their little fast patrol boats, the ship had been blown up, and he'd been floating in the water dead. And without any word of a lie, you could smell him as you approached him, because unfortunately the aroma of the rotting body was coming towards the ship. We gathered him up, pulled him in board, and we're going to give him a dignified funeral ceremony, as you do at sea, rolled up in canvas with weights over the side. But unfortunately we went to what they called air raid warning red. Someone was coming in to attack us, so unfortunately he just got put over the side. But he got a wrapped up funeral. He wasn't left to rot in the sea and get around the fishes. So that was an experience.
You were quite young at that point.
I was 18. Oh no, hang on, I was 56, 17. 18, 17.
Quite a big thing to deal with at that age.
It is, yeah.
Were you ever decorated?
Only a campaign medal for service, that was it.
Mm.
And how does that make you feel?
Well, I think we all knew we were going to get one, or we got one when we got it. So yeah. I don't wear it because I've only got one. I think it feels lonely, bless it. If I had two, I might be more so.
Would you like to have had more? No?
Medals don't bother me. Nor decorations of any sort.
Are there significant things that happened during the time that you were serving, apart from those two conflicts?
What, other things that I remember well?
Yeah, that were quite significant.
Okay, right. I was on a ship called HMS Londonderry, named after the harbour in Northern Ireland, and we paid a visit to our town of Maine in February 1961, and from there we were planning to go across to Greenland, across the top of the Atlantic, and meet the Ark Royal to do escort duties for her while she carried out cold weather flying trials. So we left Londonderry after this quick brief visit, and off we set. And suddenly the weather decided to annoy us. It was up to force 11 and 12, which is the highest on the scale. So we spent the whole trip, I forget how long it was before we got there, chipping ice constantly off of everything inside, because if you have too much ice on the ship, it tends to flip over. The weight takes over. But it's a constant battle, because every time we hit a wave, water comes over and freezes on its way towards you. And you turn your back on it and you're hit by ice. It's that sort of situation. So that memory stands out well in my mind without a doubt. That was a fantastic trip. It was really using the sea in a rough way. And I loved it. But you have to go and be mad. You have to be mad to like it.
You've sort of answered this question a little bit already, but what did you do after you left the services?
Well, I worked in government communications, so I continued doing communications all through my working life, and I loved it, so that was good.
And then, obviously, you said you wanted to leave because of your wife as well, didn't you?
I left the Navy, yeah. Yeah, I was asked to sign on and continue, but as I said, I didn't consider it to be a married life. My last posting was actually ashore. My one and only posting ashore was my last one. So of course they thought they got me, you see, by giving me this lovely posting. But I said no. I think I said to the officer who was asking me, I said no, as soon as I sign on the dotted line, you'll have me bobbing up and down. And I've done enough of that. I did 3 major ships in 9 years, and 2 or 3 others. I thought I'd done my bit.
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned my granddad before, he said that one of his things he wishes that he left earlier so he could have spent more time with my nan and my uncles and aunties.
You know, it's so easy to sign. If you're loving your job, it's so easy to carry on doing it. And I can fully understand why guys do. A lot of my friends do. Yeah.
And do you attend any of the reunions?
Yeah, I belong to 3 naval associations. I attend 2 reunions regularly with them, and then there's another one called Royal Naval Comms Chiefs Association. I've joined them 8 years ago, and I attend their reunions. So I've got 3 static ones each year, and then my Londonderry ship. We haven't got a formal association, but we meet up informally when we can, when we want to. So we meet up. So yes, I do meet up with them a lot.
You're still in contact with people you are?
Yeah, I'm probably preempting the question further on, but since I've retired from my civilian role, I've established contact or re-contact with 70 people from my naval life. And we've got a fantastic email network going through the world.
That's great.
Just passing like mad. It's fun.
Yeah. What has your time been like in the Queen Alexandra Hospital?
Well, I work as a volunteer. I've only been there 4.5 years, but I love it. And recently I've been asked to do a history project to relate the story of the hospital home. This has been done before in a book form, but mine is in the digital era, is going to be put onto the website. So hopefully it'll be a nice long story with lots and lots of pictures that I've discovered. I haven't told you, have I? I was sent up into the loft last year to look in a tin box, was the quote. Got some photographs in there and to sort them out because they were thinking of scanning them. So I went up there and there's 3,500 to 4,000 I counted. But in amongst it were some treasures. There's the original photograph of the opening day on the 9th of July 1919 by Queen Alexandra. A fantastic series of photographs of the opening day, all the people in their glorious clothes. Black and white, of course, no colour. And then progressing through there, various years, there's photographs that have been retained from other events throughout. So it's good, and it's something I enjoy doing. Yeah.
Sounds interesting to find those pictures.
I mean, before I came here today, I was up to 1928. I'm progressing slowly. Okay.
And the last question is, what is your favourite memory of your time in the Navy? Quite a hard one.
It is. I think it's got to be all the people I've known and how I managed to keep in touch with them, because the camaraderie that you form in those days. I'll tell you another little story. A few years back I was queuing in the dockyard of Portsmouth to go and see HMS Daring, one of the new ships. I was stood there with a friend of mine who I've known for over 50 years, and I saw this young sailor stood there marshalling the people, and he had a cap tally on his head that I didn't recognise. It was something like FP23 whatever. It didn't have a ship's name on it anyway, that was a significant thing. So when we got adjacent to him, I said to him, "What's your cap tally mean, mate?" So he told me, and it meant he was like on call to assist if anyone fell sick or anything on that type of ship, the 23 figures. I said, "Oh, okay." And I said to him, I said, "Is this other guy here your mate?" He says, "Yeah." And I casually said to him, "You've got him for life, you know." He said, "What?" I said, "I've had this one for 50 years, joking." But I don't think he appreciated that what I said was true. With no disrespect to any of my mates, I love having them as mates, but I haven't known them that long. Some of them from when I first joined. I joined the Navy 60 years ago this year. It's a long time. It's like yesterday. It's mental. Well, that was me when I was about, I was 15 and a half, we'll say. I joined the Navy a little while back. I joined in the March of that year. And that was me a month before I left the Royal Navy.
Looking very happy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And just as a little bit of humour, that was me on a beach in the Caribbean in '61. Brought this along. This is a list of all my cap tallies of all the ships I was on and the shore establishments. Fun. I love to tell the story. It's been fun to me. You know, it's good to let someone else know.